When you hear the music, you know what time it is. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Joy Reid Show. Big ups to everybody who is checking us out on YouTube, where I can already see the lemon heads. Always first to class. And also my sorors always jump in very early. I always get a hello soror very early in the chat. So big ups to everybody that is checking in, lemonhead or not. Whether you're not, you're a lemonhead, but we see the lemonheads there with all the lemons. Thank you for being here on the YouTube side. Also, right in front of me on Substack. Hello to all of you. Appreciate you being here. All the Facebook folks. Hello to our Facebook friends and also our adorable Twitchies, our little Twitchy family. They're like the little sort of babies in the crew. They are now up to a stalwart. I think there's like 240 of them or something. They're a stalwart little crew. We want to grow our little wee crew of Twitchy folk. Let's try to grow that. Tell a friend that's on Twitch to get on. Also, our LinkedIn folks. I didn't even used to realize that LinkedIn had content like that, but apparently they do. You can get content on LinkedIn. Hello to our LinkedIn viewers. We appreciate each and every one of you. And again, yes, we want to grow each of our armies, our many, many, many sources of viewership and also listenership. So big up to everybody that's listening to this on an audio podcast. We don't care how you're listening. We just love you regardless. Thank you to everyone who tuned in over No Kings Weekend and everybody who bought merch. I didn't even show the rest of my shirt. It said No Kings on the top. It said Just Frogs at the bottom. I don't know why I didn't bring one. It says No Kings, Just Frogs. And everyone who purchased merch there, thank you very much. Those who gave to the donation we're going to do to the Committee to Protect Journalism, we raised about $750 for the Committee to Protect Journalists. We will send that off. So thank you to everybody who threw in for that, because we do want to support journalists that are facing, legal issues just for doing their job. So we're going to send those coins over. So thank you all to do that. No King's Day was excellent. 8 million plus. We don't even have a final count of all the people who showed up in person and then just quadruple that online. This was an international protest. It was quite amazing. Thank you to all of you who tuned in, by the way, to our joint broadcast on YouTube, Substack, Twitch, Facebook, as well as on Don Lemon's channels and Jim Acosta's channels on YouTube and Substack. We enjoyed it all. Let's throw a little roundup up, Jason, of the way it looked all around. This is A1. This is sort of all of the world's. You can see this was the Indivisible, folks. This first one is Indivisible, showing Minneapolis, San Diego, Nashville, Boston, New York City. They're showing kind of all of them. And then you can just see all around the world. This is from social media showing the crowds. Look how massive these crowds were. 8 million that we know of. And of course, you had all the puppeteering, the big Trump puppets, tax the rich, lots of incredible messages, lots of activism against the war on Iran. This was international. And I also want to note that it was not just in this country. People marched in Canada. They marched in Europe. All over the world, people were standing up. And even in some countries that kind of low-key do still have a monarchy, they're like, no kings for us either. There's North Carolina, red states and blue. This was an incredible, incredible day. It was actually a beautiful day. There was great weather for most of the country to be able to participate in this. Boston, Massachusetts, you name it. People were just out there, and I just want to appreciate it. I will note that there were some reports that the demographics were a little slightly more diverse. It's still majority non-diverse, but the frogs, there was a choreographed frog dance. I live for this. This is what we come here. This is why we say no kings, just frogs. No one asked for the frog choreography, but we got it anyway, because you know what? The frogs always come to play. The frogs always come to play. They don't play around here. They don't play about their liberty. The frogs don't play about their liberty. They're all about it. There you go. You want to see here, Prague. Look at that. That's a no kings protest in Prague. So all over the world, people detest Donald Trump. They despise what this country has, sort of degraded into. And, the chaos, the violence, the horror of it all, it's impacting people all over the world. And also the war on Iran, very unpopular. Our very own Nitha Khan took to the streets of New York City. And let's show some of her video. She got a lot of really great video. This is A2J. Here we go. This is some video from our very own Nitha Khan, who was a correspondent and producer over the weekend, showing you some of what happened in the greatest city in the world, New York City. People power, lots of great signs, Big up to Jemiah, our intern, who put all this together as a unified video from all of the content that Nita created. I even see a frog there in New York. The frogs made it all the way to the Big Apple. I like my ice crushed. We have pretty good reasons to be here. Pretty good reason to be here. That's the pretty and good memorials. And it was festive. It was fun. But it was serious business as well, because we are still trying to fight to keep this democracy. And, one of the struggles has been to sort of make these protests more diverse. I got that question in an event that I did over the weekend at Howard University, why it wasn't more diverse. But I think part of it is that it is the majority who feel responsibility to get out there and put their bodies on the line and stop what's happening in Washington. And so, you have to big up everybody who was there. Our spicy whites were out there in full effect. The Spicies are about it. And they've said, we're going to take the lead. And we appreciate y'all for doing it. And everyone who went to a No Kings protest, wherever you went, whoever you are, whatever your demographic is, we just appreciate you for standing up for democracy. And there is good reason to protest, right? Donald Trump absolutely is acting like Mad King George, the king that was in place when the U.S. broke away from Great Britain. Only instead of a throne or an Arc de Trump, which is what he wants, some wily artist protest types in our nation's capital erected a golden toilet in his honor. And they gilded it with the kind of Timu gold that he is putting all over our glorious White House. This is excellent, high quality protest here. Well played, artsy people. But more importantly, the reasons why folks are protesting are that against the will of a vast majority of the voters in the last election in either party, we now have 50,000 troops deployed to the Middle East. 50,000 troops. That is 10,000 more troops than were in the Middle East when Trump came to office. We already had bases and lots of people there. He's added 10,000 more, with more to come. And it's 100% more, I believe, than even the MAGA voting base presumed that they were getting and that they were voting for. Definitely 100% more than Kamala voters wanted. So tonight on the show, I really want to unpack something that has become all too common in our politics, and maybe actually in politics everywhere. Maybe it's not just us. And that is the idea of co-optation. Co-optation. So you see those protests out there, right? People are marching, and if it's organic and they're just doing it because they despise the idea of war or of a monarch on the throne in the White House, that's an organic movement. But movements can be co-opted. And co-optation has been the coin of the realm on the Republican Party side really since the post-Vietnam era. And that is co-optation. It's when a movement that starts out being about one thing suddenly becomes about something else. Let me give you an example. The Tea Party movement, remember them? Started out as a rant on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. A CNBC contributor goes on a rant, and his rant was about the Obama administration potentially doing cram down, where they were going to force banks to take less money than they are owed by homeowners because the value of the home has dropped because of the recession. And so cram down, which is what the Obama campaign promised that they would do. He promised some civil rights leaders, this is what we were going to do. But he gets in, and the banking establishment writ large, Wall Street writ large, the bankers went crazy, and they had to figure out, how can we stop Obama from doing cram down? And this rant on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, that becomes the way they figure out how to co-opt the anti-Obama sentiment among Republicans to try to stop it. So somehow this rant on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange becomes, if you can maybe put up A5 one more time, Jason, it becomes a Tea Party movement. The Tea Party movement, complete with the tri-corner hat. Remember the tri-corner revolution hats and the big tea bag signs they would have hanging from their hats, which at first they used to call themselves teabaggers, because what happens is when this rant happens on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange by the CNN contributor, he says, we need to have a tea party. Let's have a tea party on April 15th, tax day. And all of these people who didn't like Obama and who didn't believe Obama was a natural born citizen, They were like, yeah, let's march on April 15th. But they had all these other reasons for marching. They weren't marching about cram down. The teabaggers, as they called themselves until they figured out what teabaggers meant, and then they switched and called themselves Tea Partiers because they realized that was probably not a good thing. They switched their name, and suddenly they were sort of open to march about anything anti-Obama. And before long, the big money donors, led by the Koch brothers, stepped in. They took those homemade signs that you saw the people that were originally the Tea Party protesters made, and they switched them out for high-priced, professionally printed signs. And suddenly the Tea Party movement that started out as a bunch of rich Wall Street types who didn't want cram down, suddenly it was about opposing the Affordable Care Act. Suddenly, oh wait, it's about Obamacare. It's about opposing Obamacare. And it also became about opposing anything Obama wanted to do, which was the goal, not of a grassroots movement, but of Mitch McConnell and of what they called the Young Guns, led by Kevin McCarthy. I don't know how young he was, Mitch McConnell, and other Republicans who literally within 48 hours of Obama getting elected said, we're going to make him a one-term president. Mitch McConnell said that out loud, and that we're going to oppose everything he does and shut down his entire administration. But he had won the popular vote by 10 million votes. So he was really popular. He came in with high 60s Clinton level approval ratings. Like I think it was in the 70s. People were so proud of electing this Black president. So they had to figure out, well, how can we take the angry base of Republicans who were the minority who voted against Obama and turn it into a movement against him? When the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Rebellion turned into the Tea Party movement on the streets, and suddenly you had people out there with monkey dolls, Obama hung in effigy, and they could take that and they co-opted that anger by people who had lost an election by 10 million votes and turned it into a movement that suddenly was about opposing Obamacare, which it just so happened the big hospital, big medicine opposed Obamacare, big insurance opposed Obamacare. All of the corporate interests that didn't want there to be an Obamacare, that didn't want cram down, the banks that didn't want to have to pay for the fact that they'd crashed the economy, all of these people co-opted the anger of these mainly older white people. The Public Religion Research Institute, Robbie Jones, our friend, they did the data. The people who were marching with the Tea Party signs and the tea bags hanging from their hats, when you boiled right down to it, they generally were mainly moved by race. They generally were really angry about Obama's race, about Black people taking over, and about non-white immigration. Those were the things that actually held them together, but they were co-opted to suddenly use that rage and anger to oppose Obamacare, to the point where they were spitting on members of Congress and sending death threats to members of Congress who voted for Obamacare. So by the time the Tea Party movement really took off in 2010, a midterm election year, the first midterm election after Obama, when the first Black president is in office, having won the White House by 10 million votes and having passed universal health care, which even FDR hadn't been able to do, which LBJ hadn't been able to do. He finally does it. The Democrats should have been at their peak. Instead, this grassroots, fake grassroots movement that was co-opted by the Koch brothers is suddenly deployed all across the country. And recall, Obama had won states like Indiana. He won Florida. He won North Carolina. This guy had won red states. But the Tea Party movement becomes the core to Republicans' plan to stage a comeback, because the people in it were highly politically motivated to oppose anything Obama, and very motivated to vote Republican. It was the perfect way to beat back the Obama revolution, co-optation. So all of a sudden, all of these Republicans, elected official Republicans, who used to be Bush-style neocons, were reborn as Tea Partiers. Suddenly, they're all Tea Partiers. The Democrats, who were supposed to be high on helium from having passed Obamacare, were running from the hills, not wanting Barack Obama to even campaign for them. They're running away from him, even though they passed this amazing thing. They're fleeing because the Tea Party movement looked so strong. And the useful idiot mainstream media was portraying it as the greatest, most amazing, and most far-reaching movement since the civil rights movement. And so they got scared. But people who were opportunists like Marco Rubio, who was a neocon, he was a Jeb and George W. Bush neocon, a Reagan Republican. Suddenly he comes out, he's a Tea Partier. Show the magazine covers. Suddenly this neocon flips the script and he's standing, look at him with Rand Paul. They're portraying him as a Tea Partier. And he was like, yeah, I'll be a Tea Partier. He was the Republican savior, the brown, they used to call him the Latin Obama, the savior. He gets elected in 2010. But he was a neocon, okay? But suddenly, the guy who was always pro-immigration, who used to be an Univision contributor and used to, in Espanol, support the idea of immigration reform, and who actually, when he became a senator, signed on to the Gang of Eight process to actually reform immigration. Suddenly, he goes on Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh yells at him about immigration, and he votes against the very bill his own staff, along with John McCain's staff, literally wrote. He flips his entire brand to become a Tea Partier. And he would have succeeded in being the guy who co-opts the Tea Party movement, turning it into the Rubio movement, if Donald Trump hadn't come along. A better communicator, better known, and a celebrity who bollocks the whole neocon plan. Here is a clip of the Republican savior, Marco Rubio, debating Donald Trump in the multi-person 2016 primary.
He builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, he'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it. The second...
So cute. Such a cute soundbite.
But no, it's not a soundbite, it's a fact. Again, go online and Google it. Donald Trump, Polish workers, you'll see it. The second thing about the trade war, I don't understand, because your ties and the clothes you make is made in Mexico and in China. So you're going to be starting a trade war against your own ties and your own suits. All right.
You know what? Because
why don't you
they
make them in
devalue
America?
their currencies.
No.
They devalue their currencies.
Well, then make them in America.
That makes it impossible. Well, you don't know anything about business. You lose on
make them
everything
in
you do.
America.
You don't know anything about it because you're a lousy
Well, I don't know
businessman.
anything about bankrupting four companies.
No,
You
I
bankrupted
know.
four
You know what?
companies.
You know what?
I don't know anything about.
You know what?
Starting a
That's
university.
called-
That was a fake university.
First of all,
a fake university.
That's called.
There are people that borrow $36,000 to go to
Mr.
Trump University, and they're suing him now. $36,000 to go to a university.
By the way,
that's a fake school.
And by the way,
and you know what they got? They got to take a picture with a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump.
And by the way,
that's what they got for the $36,000.
I want to move on. They actually did a very
Okay, let's
good
move
job.
on. Look, yeah, we want to move on
Most of the
too.
lawsuit.
So that's
Senator. I want to
most
bring
of the
him.
lawsuit.
we can stop it there. So that's Marco Rubio. That's the old Marco Rubio. But suddenly, that's no longer Marco Rubio. Now, this is Marco Rubio.
And I've been a big supporter of NATO. And one of the reasons why I've been a supporter of NATO is because I believe that these basing rights give us leverage and give us flexibility and operational capability all over the world. But if NATO is just about us defending Europe if they're attacked, but them denying us basing rights when we need them, that's not a very good arrangement. That's a hard one to stay engaged in and say this is good for the United States. So all of them's going to have to be re-examined. All of it's going to have to be re-examined.
Okay. The guy who was a pro-NATO neocon Republican is suddenly an America firster who sounds just like Trump, saying we need to reconsider NATO. Oh, really? How sway, Marco? Because that used to not be what you believe, but now you're like pro-war. Let's invade the entire world. Let's invade Cuba. I think he probably always for that because he feels like he can become a hero and become president. Wherever he needs to be in order to be in power and close to power and in the second seat away from the presidency, Marco Rubio is going to do it. Co-optation. Marco Rubio is the guy that the Republican establishment has always counted on to co-opt grassroots-looking movements and the grassroots sentiments of the base and bring them back to the warmonger Epstein class neoconservative project. And if you don't think that's still what he's doing by becoming the face of the Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, multipolar warmongering, you're not paying attention. Now, later on, we're going to talk about the fact that on the other side of him, we're seeing an opposition, a split in the MAGA movement, where there is another group of people who's attempting to co-opt the MAGA movement, which is just the Tea Party 2.0. MAGA is just the same Tea Party movement They just changed the name. It's still anti-immigration. It's still anti-Black. It's still racist. It's still anti-women. It's still misogynist, all the same crap. But it's now split. There's a war to see who can co-opt it better, including some fake opposition, which I'm going to tell you about later in the show, because people are really getting played. Real quick, let me just announce one of our amazing sponsors. I'm actually wearing one of our sponsors today. The Joy Reid Show is brought to you by our friends at Quince. And these days, look, I'm about quality over quantity. Money is like, we gotta preserve it. We don't know how bad this economy is going to get. We don't know how terrible it's going to get. So we got to make sure that we're spending our money wisely, right? Including in our closet. And so I'm looking for things that are going to be versatile, that I can throw in the wash and they're going to come out fly. The fabrics need to still feel great, look great. The cuts need to be thoughtful. The pricing needs to make sense, but it needs to be quality over quantity. And Quince makes high quality wardrobe staples using premium fabrics like 100% European linen, 100% silk, which I do believe this is, or organic cotton poplin. Lightweight cotton cashmere sweaters are perfect for the changing seasons. It's getting a little warm. It's a little cool. We got the short sleeves. We want to look good. And don't miss all the seasonal colors and prints for spring. Clean this fabulous blue, versatile, well-made pieces that make getting dressed simple. I even recently bought one for Jason. So I think one day you'll get to see it. Quince works directly with safe, ethical factories, and they cut out the middleman so that you're not paying for brand markups or fancy retail stores, just quality clothing. Quince uses 100% European linen, not mixed stuff. Their cotton poplin is crisp. It holds the shape. The gauze is soft without being flimsy. Everything Quince makes is built to hold up season after season. The stitching, the fit, the fabrics, all fabulous. These are pieces you will reach for over and over, and you can because you can care for them without having to wear them once and then dispose. Quince clothing is consistently rated 4 out of 5 stars by thousands of customers. Real people are wearing these pieces every day and actually loving them. So if you want to get in on the Quince magic, you can do so just by being a Team TJRS or TJRS watcher. Right now, if you go to quince.com/joyreid, you can get free shipping and 365-day returns. This is a full year warranty. You can wear it for a full year and love it. And if you will, and you will love it. It's now available in Canada too. We love Canada. Do not settle for clothes that do not last. Go to quince.com/joyreid for free shipping and 365-day returns. Not 364, 365. Quince.com/joyreid. Thank you all for tuning in and supporting our amazing sponsors. Okay. So the good folks at TMZ challenged their readers to capture pics of members of Congress, House and Senate, who were on vacation while the TSA continued to work unpaid. Thousands of people working unpaid. And ICE agents are doing their jobs at some airports. And the people responded with a gold mine. Warmonger Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who took some time off thirsting for more endless wars and salivating over adding Cuba to the list of countries we're invading, to jaunt over to Disney World with no children in tow, since he has no children and is a bachelor. And you can see him here wielding his glorious bubble wand. Here's their post. Lindsey Graham looks like a full-grown Disney adult on spring break because we just got a new photo of him on Space Mountain at Disney World's Magic Kingdom. Lindsey told TMZ that he was at a meeting Friday with Trump officials in South Florida, and he went to Orlando afterwards to meet up with some friends. He said, quote, "I voted 7 times to fully fund the government. Call a Democrat." So he was kind of in his feelings about it. Joining me now is our good friend Toure, host of Toure News Now right here on YouTube and Culture Fries as well on Substack.
What is he doing there?
He's got a bubble wand. He's making magic.
I don't know. What do you do? I mean, I had a very memorable time there with my children when they were about 10, 11,
Same.
9. There. I don't know. I don't think it would be that interesting without kids.
By yourself, as an adult.
As an adult.
And I thought, I think anyone can love Disney. I think it's perfectly fair that anyone can love Disney. But it's unusual to see a man, a solo, walking around, bubble wand in hand, just jaunting around with the kids. It's weird.
On a break from ruining the country. I went to Disney World.
Yes. And meanwhile, 50,000 of our troops are not at Disney World because they're in the Middle East. And Toure, it is so offensive to me how eager Lindsey Graham is to send other people off to war. There's somebody who proposed that there should be a draft of him. He is a military man himself, that maybe he ought to be forced to go, because this glee to fight a war that, let's just be honest, we're not winning, and I don't see how we can win.
Yeah.
It seems sickening to me.
Yeah, an illegal war of choice against a country that was fruitfully and in good faith negotiating with us on their nuclear future, sort of against their nuclear future, to not have a nuclear future. And we attacked them in the midst of the negotiations in a complete shock to them. Yeah, I mean, we have a leadership that wants to attack. And I've been following some military folks on TikTok, and they keep talking about how we gamed this out and we kept losing. We were not winning in the war games against Iran that they were doing on AI simulations and computers. So they knew this was extremely difficult. And, any historian could tell you Iran is extraordinarily difficult to attack because of its physical structure, because of the people, because of so many things. And in all they have to do in this situation, Joy, is just survive.
Yes.
As long as they keep persisting, they don't lose. And then,
Right.
I saw somebody say, did in Vietnam, did America lose any battles? No.
No.
But did we win the war?
No.
Did we lose any battles in Afghanistan or Iraq?
No.
No. But we did not win those wars. And here's another one. And this is not a case of like the world was saying don't do it. He himself said you should not go into wars in the Middle East. No
Right.
more forever wars. And
Yeah.
he went into it anyway.
And the thing about it, I think that has been the most confounding thing, even for MAGA, right? This is upsetting them because because he did say that. He also said that he accused Obama of plotting to go to war against Iran, with whom Obama negotiated to do the best deal that we've had up to date with Iran to curb their nuclear ambitions. He said that, no, he's going to go to war because his poll numbers are down. That was his accusation ahead of the 2012 election. It turns out his poll numbers are in the basement. He's in the 30s at this point. He's even in the Fox News poll, very low numbers on everything, including 6 in 10 being against this war. And now he is at war and he can't even explain why.
He can't explain why we're doing it because the reason is ridiculous. But 90% of Israeli Jews are in favor of this. I'm talking about people in Israel who are Jewish, not the Arab Israelis.
Yes.
So Israel loves this, and they were very mad at Netanyahu after the Gaza war. They were very disappointed with the way that he handled the Gaza war. So it looked like it could be coming to the end of his long and storied and horrible political career in Israel. So this was about saving Netanyahu's political career. And the Israeli street is very happy.
Yes.
So he doesn't want to go home. And the Iranians want to make sure that America feels like we don't ever want to go in there again. That was a mess. So they're like, we need to fight for a while until they're like, you know what? That was a terrible idea. And I don't think we've gotten the message yet.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is, they called Afghanistan the graveyard of empires because the Soviets fought there for, a dozen or more years and had to leave, tails between their legs. The British tried, had to leave, tails between their legs. And the US tried for 20 years. And while they have nothing, it doesn't matter that they have nothing. They're home. And they're going to fight for their home, and they can hide in every nook and cranny and every hill, and they'll just keep fighting until you give up. If they're the graveyard of empires, I would say that Iran is that times 10, because Iran has an historical memory of itself as an empire. They're an old 5,000-year-old society, unlike our 250-year-old one. They're at home, and they've said very clearly, we'll just start bombing your luxury hotels. We're going to sit here and bomb everything you love. We're not only going to bomb Haifa and bomb Israel because they're just not going to have enough Golden Dome, apparently, to stop all our little scuds. But we're also going to engage the people who care about the Palestinians and who we've stood on the side with all the Shias and the Hezbollah, the group Hezbollah, which is considered the most lethal terrorist group in the country other than Al-Qaeda, but they're Shia. You're now seeing Christians in Lebanon, where Bibi's also trying to save his ass by trying to annex southern Lebanon, and they're bombing the crap out of Lebanon and civilian structures. You're now seeing Christians in Lebanon side with Hezbollah because that's who's the only people protecting them. We're actually driving Christians into the arms of Hezbollah.
Hezbollah is the only thing protecting Lebanon. Lebanon does not have an army. They don't have a functioning government. So without Hezbollah, Lebanon would cease to exist. And that's part of the big point here, that I read through what America's demands to Iran are, some of which are clearly written by Israel, and what Iran's 5 demands back to Israel and America are. And one of the things that America and Israel want is stop funding Hamas and Hezbollah. And one of the things that Iran wants is an end to the wars that Hamas and Hezbollah are fighting. So they want you stop fighting Palestine and stop fighting Lebanon, right? Because Hamas and Hezbollah are responses to Israeli aggression in the region. They are there from Iran to protect Palestine and Lebanon. All the Americans who talk about we are pro-Palestine, Iran is the most pro-Palestine nation in the world.
Much more than Saudi Arabia.
Yes, because they are putting their guns and their money on the line to protect Palestine and from Israel. And they are a response to Israeli aggression in the past and recently. So Israel's like, can you please leave Lebanon and Palestine alone so we could take them over? And Iran is like, no. We're not going to stop fighting you and America until you leave Lebanon and Palestine alone.
And leave Iraq alone too.
But Palestine is the central and original
100%.
sin in the Middle East. That is the reason why the other countries in the Middle East are angry with Israel. If there is any attack, it is because Israel continues to occupy and genocide Israel, right? As well as Lebanon. And they have expansionist dreams, right? They want to expand. We've talked about Greater Israel on this show, but they're already trying to take over the bottom third of Lebanon.
Yeah.
Hezbollah territory, right? They told 1 million people you cannot ever return home. So that's a new Gaza. So this is the Arab world is not just like angry with hate because they're democratic and because they wear blue jeans. They are angry that you are oppressing our brothers and sisters in Palestine and Lebanon. You are trying to expand and take over parts of our countries. We are trying to push you back.
Yeah. And the reality is, I think because there's not a lot of historic literacy here, Americans don't understand fully that Zionism was a strictly European project. And Jewish historians will tell you this. It was a European project. And so it's experienced by people in the region as colonialism because it was a European project. There are Jews of the region who never they weren't Zionists. They weren't creating a Zionist project. It was created in Europe. The letter for the Balfour Declaration was addressed to a European, Mr. Rothschild. And so it's experienced that way. And as you said, they want to expand Eretz Israel into eat up lots of Jordan, eat up lots of Iraq. They want pieces of Egypt. They want to go all the way to the Nile. They'd like to expand. Now they can't do it, but Bibi Netanyahu promises it to the far right, to the settler movement, many of whom come from Europe or from the United States. And he says, I'm going to give you all this land. We're going to let you have it all. And they believe in that project. And that's why they're happy about the war against Iran, because it's very clear. And for the audience to understand, Saudi Arabia, which is a Sunni country who you'd think would be pro-Palestinian because the Palestinians are majority, overwhelmingly Sunni, Saudi Arabia talks a good game, but does absolutely nothing for the Palestinians. They say things and they don't do anything. And the Wahhabists, the extremists in their midst that are pro-Palestinian, that are the people who did like Al-Qaeda, those people, they would love to topple the Saudi regime too. Whereas Hezbollah and the Shia extremist groups, they're not looking to topple the Iranian government. So the Iranian government can feel comfortable funding them because they're not trying to topple them. They're trying to get Palestine. So there are all of these nuances.
The story that Americans are told is that Israel is this nice democratic country in the middle of this very bad neighborhood, and all the brown Arabs are constantly trying to kill them. So they are doing the righteous fight back. That is complete bullshit. That is the story that you would get if you just interacted with American mainstream media for the last 20 or 30 years. That's what you would think. And that is completely the opposite. That Israel, as you alluded, is a settler colonialist country that came in, took over somebody else's land, killed a lot of the locals, and are trying to continue to expand. And now they turn to the US and say, please help us. Right? They were originally helped by England, by Britain, and now they're helped by America. Please save us from all these crazy brownies. And America is more than happy to help them, right? Because there's a strategic political advantage, military advantage, economic advantage for America in helping them, right? So I understand from the Henry Kissinger level of why they want to do that, but you are making the world worse by supporting Israel's expansionism and their aggression in the region, which only creates more conflict. But again, it's not conflict that's equal. It's Israel with billions of dollars from America trying to expand around the region, and the other countries trying to deal with that.
Yeah.
And at this point, the knowledge that we have, when we go on mainstream media, we should not be condemning Hamas. Would you have condemned Nelson Mandela's ANC if you were on TV in the 70s? Like, that would be insane. Now, you would look back now like, that's insane. You should not condemn Hamas. They are trying to stand up for a people who have no army.
Well, I would say I disagree with that in part, right? Because the difference between the ANC and Hamas is that Hamas generally also brutally oppresses Palestinians, right? They're brutal toward everyone in general. And I think they are a desperate movement. I agree with you that they are a movement born out of desperation, just like Hezbollah was born out of desperation.
Yeah.
But they also lack the thing that I think that the ANC developed, which was a moral story, right? I mean, the people of the ANC, the African National Congress, they weren't blowing up like a group of people who were at a concert. Like, they weren't blowing up a concert. That's just bad form. You know, they do stuff that is completely terroristic.
I would like to know more about the Hamas story from Palestinian people, because I know that some of the story that we get about Hamas is filtered through Israel, right? The whole story about beheading babies, that did not happen.
That wasn't true. Yeah, that was just made up. Like, that was just made up.
And that was a myth that ran through America and justified Palestinians are animals. Hamas is horrific, right? Israel is right and justified to do whatever they want. I know, and Ryan Grimm has talked about this, that Hamas has repeatedly offered to disband to get to peace. They do not want to run Palestine forever. They were like, we will go home. We will put down our guns and quit this if that will get us to peace. Netanyahu also does not want them to quit.
No, he doesn't.
Given them money. He has told them, no, you cannot quit. I will continue fighting you forever, because he is a valuable villain for them. So, I mean, they have done some horrific things, but they are in a horrific genocidal situation. I mean, we talk about genocide starting October 7th. As far as the Arab street, it has been a genocide for many years. So
that is true.
When you're fighting back against years and years of genocide, I don't know what's relatively small thing Hamas has done in context of what they are receiving. Is that really terrorism?
I would argue that there's terrorism going on both sides. My argument would be that I think what Israel and the IDF does is terrorism. I mean, you demolish all the hospitals, all the schools, all the athletic facilities, when you kill doctors and nurses and moms and kids, and you leave rubble behind in Gaza. And then you, in the West Bank, start forcibly confiscating land and having the IDF look out for settlers. They just arrested a CNN crew. A CNN crew gets arrested at gunpoint, thrown on the ground, treated the same way the Palestinians are treated, maybe not as bad because they're alive, right? They're killing journalists. I would actually argue that and you have to remember, and we've talked about it on this show, that the IDF came from and sort of emerged out of what were literal terrorist movements, the Irgun and the Stern Gang. They were literally designated as terrorists, just like Hamas. The British considered, and so did our CIA, they considered the Irgun and the Stern gang to be exactly what we call Hamas, a terrorist group. And those people, the early prime ministers of Israel, literally were members of the Irgun and the Stern gang. They've got the mugshots to prove it. And so they, and in the same way that, to your point, we designated the ANC as a terrorist group and then had to take Mandela, who was in the African National Congress, off the list after he becomes president. Right. The British and the US took the early prime ministers of Israel off the terrorist list to recognize them as prime ministers. So you're right. The designation of terrorist, it morphs over time depending on the situation.
And it's in the eye of the beholder quite often, right? We have an Israeli-centric media, mainstream media, and government, which feeds us this notion that they are terrorists. They are defending tiny regions that cannot defend themselves. And people who are oppressed have a moral and legal right under international law to fight back. They are fighting back. I mean, if you oppress a group of people for long enough, what do you think, especially the young men of that region, what are they going to do? They're not allowed to have jobs. They're not allowed to have livelihood. They're not allowed to have education. They're in an open air prison. They are trying to suffocate them. What do you think they're going to do? And there have been times when they negotiated. There have been times when they've been peaceful. They are like, what else can we do? And in some ways, what happened on October 7th moved them forward because it brought the world's attention to the atrocity. We don't really get to see how bad things are in Palestine. And that sent up a flare to the world about, we are really hurting. This is really bad. We really need your attention. And Netanyahu has his own distraction of like, look at Iran. So the world is focused on that. It's still going down in Gaza. They returned the hostages. It's still genocide in Gaza.
Yeah, so, and the West Bank is undercovered completely. I have a ton to get to with you, but I want to get another thing because I think it's also terroristic to deny Americans healthcare and food and, you know, the necessities of life. And to sort of pivot off of this same conversation, Republicans, according to Axios, are now planning the way that they now want to fund our continued war in Iran, which, by the way, has also produced a genocidal act, a war crime likely, that we killed 160 little girls in a Iranian school, which was clearly a war crime.
The whole thing is a war crime.
Clearly. But now to fund,
school, yes, but the whole thing.
100%. But now Republicans are saying the way that they're going to get to the funding, which Democrats won't agree to, is to cut healthcare. They're going to cut $200 billion out of American healthcare to pay for this.
You know, the American people are very much against this war, right and left, or I think we talked about that, about 60% oppose this war. And the American people, you probably know the number, I don't know the number, the American people agree that we should have healthcare, like expanded healthcare for our citizens. So the government is moving in the exact opposite direction of what the people want, which is typical in our system, that the people do not get what they want. The wealthy get what they want. There is a high correlation between the wealthy wanting something and it happening. There's a very low correlation between the masses wanting something electorally, legislatively, and it happening. So there's a clear example of government going, we're going in that direction. And the people are like, we want that direction. And
they're like, no. And very quick, before we move off around, because I have a bunch I want to get to with you as well. There is a split in MAGA over this. So you've got, like, now it's becoming MAGA versus MEGA, they call it, right? The Make Israel Great Again people. And so it's been fascinating to watch it. You've got like the far right Nick Fuentes side, the Tucker, Candace, et cetera, on one side. And you've got people like this guy, Mark Levin, who's if you guys aren't familiar with right-wing talk radio, he's a longtime talk radio guy. Here he is just saying it out loud. We want our troops on the ground. Here's B3.
Troops on the ground. He said no troops on the ground. I don't remember that in any campaign speech either. Well, why would we need troops on the ground? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we wouldn't need 300,000 of them. It's this uranium, too. We've got to get the uranium. If it cannot be destroyed, if it cannot be altered, we got to get it.
Oh,
For the reason I just said. You can make dirty bombs, and over time you can still make sophisticated missiles. So you need to get to the uranium. That's why I'm reading in the paper, we're talking about the 82nd Airborne, we're talking about these various special forces and the various military services and so forth. He's not talking about sending regular army and infantry in by the hundreds of thousands. The men he's talking about, the units he's talking about, they are specialized. And you know what else? I remember from my days in the Reagan administration. Many of them are trained for a moment like this.
Okay, Mark.
To try and secure enriched uranium.
Okay, Mark.
the absolute cheek of that old cooter committing other people's sons and daughters. Oh, they're in the 82nd Airborne. This is what they do for a living. Go in and get the uranium. You know what? You go get the uranium, Mark Levin. You go put your uniform on, put your ass on a plane, and you go get the uranium. What are you talking about? Go ahead.
Did you watch the Joe Kent Tucker Carlson?
I did.
You did. Yeah. So this is what Joe Kent is talking about, that people like Mark Levin are used to seed messages to the public. He's taking messages from our government, from Israel's government also, and telling the people what the governments want you to know. So this is sort of like the information pre-troops, like who goes ahead of the candidate and make sure that everything is right when the candidate gets to the venue. Like it's like that, but intellectual. Like when Trump comes and says, okay, we're going to actually send troops, Mark Levin has already been telling the Foxies,
that's right,
we need this. This is going to happen. And it's going to be great, right? They're going to remember Iraq. They're going to welcome us
like liberators, as liberators. Yeah.
Like liberators.
But what's interesting about it is that's only working with like half of them. The other half are like, hell no, we're following Candace Owens now. Let's move on to, I got to talk about some culture stuff because I've got a little time with you, but I want to talk about this. We cannot have my Culture Fries host on without talking about culture. Let's talk about TLC and this mess over Chile. Who came on and denied this classic TLC pick, that she reposted a very ugly meme about Michelle Obama that was horrible. She says she accidentally reposted it. But that has now led people to uncover her apparent donations to right-wing causes, to right-wing politicians. And we're talking about in the 2024 cycle. So now you've got lots of people who are planning on going to that concert saying, yeah, we're not going. There was going to be a reunion concert with En Vogue and TLC. Apparently lots of people trying to cancel if she's going to be there. Your thoughts about this and how many MAGA seem to be in our Gen X, our Gen X whole cohort of entertainers that we love?
That's, I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch. This is an interesting case because we've seen, we just saw, obviously, Nicki Minaj jump over there and do her song and soft shoe and tap dance. And Nick Cannon and what's her name who used to date Kanye?
Amber Rose. We have it. Let's play it. Here's Nick Cannon, Amber Rose, Jason's B5. Let's play it. Nick Cannon, Amber Rose.
Like Trump has always been known, like before people was hating on him, like he would be at all the events with like Russell Simmons and all the black parties. Like, he fuck with black women, like
black girlfriend.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Publicly.
Like Trump has always been, that nigga was on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yep. He didn't have to do that.
But when he got political, that's when, people start putting the racist jacket on.
It's all propaganda.
I honestly don't think he's racist. I think he's Trumpist.
Here's the thing. If Trump was racist, right? Let's say he was pandering just to get the vote.
Yeah.
Right? Why is he still doing shit for black people right now? He could have been like, yo, fuck y'all. I got your vote. I don't give a fuck about y'all. I'm already in office. I can't run another 4 years. I already did 4 years.
I think it's real dope. The lady he made the pardon czar.
Yes.
He made her he pardoned her and then made her the pardon czar to make sure that anybody who is actually been done wrong by the system, that he appointed her to be able to be like, look, you go out there and find these people for me so I can pardon them.
You know why I love Trump?
I fucked with that.
Trump made me have love for my country because when
I feel stupider having listened to that. Thank you for stopping me. I actually feel like brain cells died as I was listening to these two geniuses yap about things they know. First of all, what is it about these people who describe Donald Trump in the 90s, the same era when he was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein? They think 90s Trump is the same Trump they see today, and therefore they like 90s Trump. Therefore, please explain these people.
But I don't know. There's this constant thing of y'all didn't think he was racist until he got into politics. I mean, we did, but it didn't matter. He was just a loudmouth rich guy, page 6 in New York City. So it didn't matter to call out his racism. When he started in on the birther shit, it was like, oh, here's the king of the racists attacking Obama. So, I mean, I don't understand that. Nick also, this was like a greatest hits of the bullshit that they say. Don't you know that the Democrats started the KKK and the Republicans freed the slaves? That was later.
Like in the 19th century, it's like you guys don't know anything, but you know a little bit about nothing, right? The Democrats, yes, and there were Republicans who were in the Klan too. Look at the history of Colorado. But yes, it's like they think this is such an own. If the Democratic Party of today is the same Democratic Party from 1865, how is Obama a Democrat?
The party, the parties switched. It's more regional. It was Southerners who had Democrats had the South, Republicans had, but the KKK is all up in the GOP today. So
literally,
whatever it was in 1850, I don't know why we're even talking about that. The thing with so Nick is like tripling down on the bullshit, right? Nicki Minaj is tripling down on it. It's interesting with Chili because she seems to have gotten caught out there. And now she's like, no, it was a mistake. I was hacked. This is bull. I'm not actually that. And it's kind of like, you're not the first. You're not the fifth. You're not even the 10th at this point. Like, if that's your jam and you've been caught, you might as well just say like, hey, that's who I am.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure that T-Boz is strangling her like, what the fuck? You're fucking up our whole shit because now no one wants to come to our thing. So go out there and apologize and you're costing us money. But I mean, if that's what you believe, why don't you just you don't have the courage to believe. Kind of like I'll give you an example, right? My high school classmates pulled me back into a group chat, right? So there's like 90 of us in the group chat, right? I went to a very PWI high school, right?
Okay.
So now it's like 85 white people, Gen X. I'm like, upper middle class, a lot of them. I went to private school. So I'm like, I know some of y'all are MAGA.
Yeah.
Who's MAGA? I want to know. I just said that in the group chat. Who's MAGA? Nobody copped to it. And a group of 85 Gen X white people. It's not zero. Upper middle class white, it's not zero. It's not zero. And nobody copped to it. And I said, just remember that when your classmate asked you what you believe, you were afraid to say what you believe. There's nothing that I believe politically that I am afraid to say that I believe. I voted for Mamdani, right?
Yeah.
I am pro-Palestinian, right? Like there's nothing that I believe that we shouldn't have guns in this society at all, right? Like there's nothing that I wouldn't, but you wouldn't tell me. And like Chili, you're MAGA, but you're afraid to say, don't you think that's strange that you're afraid to say what you believe in?
Well, could it be that, we've seen a bunch of people who, some of them are surprised, like Snoop, right? Who used to condemn people who would perform for Trump and then did it. Or like Ice Cube, who was like seemingly MAGA curious, but it's not clear he's MAGA. Maybe he wanted to make a difference with his platinum plan. We don't know what that was. Nelly, who's, seems to be MAGA. And like you have this, and to me, I don't know if it's, and I guess I'm begging you to explain it. Is it because these people are Gen X and they used to party with Trump in the 90s and they can't let go, right? Can they just not let go of the Trump they used to party with? Can they just think they they don't want to seem like they were duped back then? Like, why are so many Gen X performers, Black performers, MAGA?
I think that there is a cultural appeal to Trump if the politics don't enter into your world that heavy. And we're not talking about Chuck D being MAGA, right? Like we're talking
that would be, I think I would have to just like give up and retire. Sure. I would be done. Like, I couldn't.
We're talking about people who probably don't know very much about politics. And I think most MAGAs don't know much about politics, but the rappers you're talking about, I don't think Nicki Minaj has ever read an article, much less a book, right, about politics, right? So I think there is a cultural appeal of Trump that's just why a lot of his voters like him, right? He seems strong, he seems real, he seems funny. So like that's sort of like when you see like the Superman sort of memes that they try to apply to him, like that's how they see him in the cult. So like if you are focused on culture and it's super important to you and like how you are perceived in the world, and rappers are always trying to be perceived as some sort of superhero, right? I can see the general appeal. Like you would get attention for being like, I'm riding with Trump, right? Like people would talk about that. It might be negative attention, but you're going to get attention for that. There's nobody over here who's going to give, right? When it was Obama, Jay-Z and Beyonce wanted to be photographed with Obama. Other people want to be photographed. There's nobody we have quite like that. And if you're like dying for attention, then you can be like, yeah, I'm with that guy. And like, like I said, there's a cultural thing to him. We are grossed out by it, but he does have a cultural appeal to some Americans that nobody really else in politics at all can manifest.
I would also argue, and we don't know the specifics of, particularly Chile, but I think a lot of it too, and I suspect in her case is also a religious fundamentalism, which we talk about a lot on this show. I think there's a Christian fundamentalism among some of these people that is where they get in. But I will just close this bit by saying, I think the cultural opprobrium about it, I think the backlash to it is important, because if we're on our side saying that Donald Trump is a fascist, then there is no pass for being like, but I kind of like the fascist. If you like the fascist, and I don't like you, and I can't ride with you and just say, I'm going to excuse, because substitute the word Hitler for Trump. Could you say, I liked everything about this artist. They did like Hitler, but that's the one sort of ding. But other than liking Hitler, I'm cool with him. That's the problem, right? If we're saying he's a fascist,
so wait,
just substitute the word Hitler in and see, would you be cool with it?
So are you not going to listen to the new Kanye album?
I have no interest in it because, number one, and I know it's doing really well, and it surprises me how well it's doing. People are very forgiving over him because I think they see a lot of what he does as mental illness, even though he says that's not what it is. And also it's weird. He's landed in this strange place where his anti-Semitism has congealed with the base of MAGA's anti-Israelism. And it's all become one big thing, right? I think that people need to disaggregate being vehemently opposed to the right-wing Israeli sort of settlement project and being opposed to Jewish people. But I don't think on the MAGA base, a lot of them make the distinction. I think that they might have an issue with the Jews. And so their anti-Israel thing is not like where our thing is, where you and I are like, no, we're pro-Palestinian. We like Jewish people. We just think Israel is an expansionist nuclear armed menace of a state. We're not saying we don't like Jewish people.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, I mean, and I've listened to a lot of Candace on this, sadly, and you hear nothing pro-Palestinian, but every chance to diss Israel, which is like, this is a sly chance to be anti-Semitic, but like you're saying Monica instead of my nigga, so it kind of slides by in public, but like, you don't care about Palestine. I listened to the Kanye album because I wanted to know where he is. I cannot be a fan because of all the stuff, but as a person who's been following his career for 20 some years and following hip hop since its beginning, I'm like, I want to see where this musical thinker is right now in his career. Which is the whole burden. I asked like a bunch of my friends who are music heads, did you listen to Kanye? And most of them were like, no, not even listening. Right. So that's a whole barrier.
Yeah.
I have listened several times. I do like it. I don't love it. I think this is better than anything since Life of Pablo, but it doesn't come close to touching anything in the Pablo and prior era.
It's so like his creativity peaked, Although, by the way, the new T.I., that's a whole different conversation because I'm all about T.I.'s new music. Before I let you go, I'm gonna give you, you've got exactly 1 minute to explain why the right, or just enjoy with me how the right is losing their minds over Drewski. Jason, you can put it up. We're not gonna have the sound of it.
On your feet.
Is your husband producing for you?
He is. Oh yeah, Jason is the other Reid in Yes.
Shout out to Jason.
Absolutely. In the
your
Joy
wife.
Reid, he's the
I
Reid
love
in the
that.
Joy Reid Show. Jason
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate that.
Yes.
That's beautiful. The couple that makes TV together stays together. I love that.
Exactly. And please let Afro Man know that, because he tried to date me when we were out here.
He tried to date you?
He tried to he shot his shot. He shot his shot, and I like Afro Man. I'm happy that, but I was happy to just let him know it's not a thing. But talk about Drewski. I love this, by the way.
My God. I mean, he has murdered Erica Kirk comedically. My God.
He didn't ever say he was. The thing about it that's so interesting that I read about MAGA, that at least tells you where MAGA is, he never said he was being Erica Kirk. They're just mad about it, saying that they think he's being Erica. He never said, I'm Erica Kirk.
It's obvious that he's being, it's obvious to me. I mean, he's savage. I wish he'd done this for Christmas, but I don't even know where this guy came from. It seemed like suddenly he was everywhere on the internet, on every commercial. I'm like, okay, he's gigantic. I never even heard of him.
He was a gamer.
Okay.
He was, and he did these things where he would dress up in like a fat suit and he would go to like NASCAR and pretend to be MAGA. And people are mad at him because he does whiteface. What do you make of that? And the right is all mad. They're in their feelings about the Erica Kirk piece, but also the fact that he's doing whiteface. It's a costume. And also, by the way, if you go and watch Nutty Professor, Eddie Murphy is all these characters, including like a white Jewish dude. So it's like
the right cannot understand race at all. Like it doesn't compute in their brains. And they love to do the switch test as a way of understanding. Well, if a white person did that, would it be racism? If a black person did that? And that doesn't work because it doesn't take into account the power dynamic. When you put on blackface, you are relating to a whole history of art that was meant to demean black people, right? That was part of racism, of saying black people are dumb, unimportant, and don't matter. Whiteface has none of that. It is not equivalent to blackface. And for Drewski to do a comedy bit making fun of Erica Kirk doesn't call her out for being white. It calls her out for being ridiculous and going on a celebration tour when she seems to be mourning. But it doesn't mock her for being white. So it's completely different.
It's completely, and also I shouldn't have even called it whiteface because he's in a costume. But they're like, but Megyn Kelly got fired. No, she said blackface is fine. She said blackface is okay, and she's old enough to know. I mean, she's like old Auntie Barbie. She understands, huh?
It wasn't just for that, though.
It wasn't just for that, but that was the last straw. That was the final straw, saying that blackface is okay. So
I want to amplify one of the comments that just came up because the right talks about how the left is all about identity politics. And we are, but the right is also all about identity politics. They're just playing it for white people.
Amen.
Right. And it doesn't seem like identity politics when you're doing it on behalf of straight white men, but they are doing white victimization, white supremacy, white victimhood, white is right, just the same way as we're trying to uplift black, brown, gay, trans, female, the immigrant, etc.
Yeah.
They're just doing it for the people who are in power.
Yeah, when Drewski denies some duly deserving military members promotions to one-star general, like the racist guy who is our Secretary of War Crimes does, when he starts denying people promotions based on their gender and race and the color of their skin and their gender, when he does that, then y'all can criticize him. Toure, it is always a pleasure.
Let me do one more question, because if you do 1,000 shows, eventually the producer and the host are going to misalign, and somebody's going to be annoyed with somebody. Right?
It happens, brother. It happens, brother.
Has there been a moment when something happened and one of the two of you was like, I am a little mad at you?
Ray, listen, we are cool now. We are cool. Don't mess it up, brother. Everything is right.
Toure on here starting trouble.
Oh my God,
I love the basic
Toure, you're muted. You're muted. Look, you know who muted you?
You did. I didn't mute him.
I didn't mute him. Jesus, the Lord muted Toure.
What?
Because you muted because Jesus, the Lord, said, you start in trouble. You start in trouble, and we're going to put you on mute. I didn't do it. It came from up on high. Toure. Everybody, please follow Toure. Toure, we're going to put the link to Toure's great podcast. He does it 4 times a week. You get lots and lots and lots of Toure news
on the YouTube.
It is so much fun. You need to watch it. And also, you need to subscribe to Culture Fries on Substack. Toure, you're my friend. I appreciate you, even though you're muted, and I don't know why you are.
Love you too. Oh, I'm still on.
The Lord is still working on you. give me a second. Try to unmute yourself. Come on, try.
I don't see.
You can't defy the Lord. You can't defy him. You can't.
I don't see.
Love you, Toure. Just wave. Just wave at the people. Bye. I don't know what happened, but something in the universe, in the matchless name of Jesus. He spoke my name, and
the Lord said, absolutely not.
He said,
let's move on to second hour, please.
That's right. The sepia savior said, you will be silent. I will turn over the tables in this temple. The matchless, the sepia savior. I stole that from today. Thank you all for joining the second hour of the Joy Reid Show. We appreciate each and every one of you for being here. The Joy Reid Show is brought to you by lots and lots and lots of other people. And we want to find out how you guys are preparing for springtime and spring cleaning season. One way you can do it is to upgrade your home with a Helix mattress. Spring allergens mean you need more sleep. And Helix is the most awarded mattress brand. It's tested and reviewed by experts like Forbes and Wired. Helix makes buying a mattress super simple. Take the Helix sleep quiz. We did. It will match you with the perfect mattress based on your personal preferences and sleep needs. Go get free shipping and seamless delivery with Helix. They deliver your mattress right to your door with free shipping right here in the U.S., right to your door to door, rooted to the tutor. The Happy with Helix guarantee offers a risk-free customer-first experience designed to ensure that you are completely satisfied with your new mattress, so you can rest easy with seamless returns and exchanges. Helix also offers a 120-night sleep trial and limited lifetime warranty. We're so excited about our Helix mattress, and we want you to be excited about your sleep too. You need more sleep when you're more stressed. So get you some sleep. Go to helix.com/joy for 27% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/joy for 27% off site-wide. This offer is exclusive to the Joy Reid Show audience. So make sure that you enter our show name after checkout so that they know that we sent you. helixsleep.com/joy. Thank you all for being here in this second hour of the Joy Reid Show. And this one does not have a visual to it, but I just want to let you know that the Joy Reid Show is being brought to you by our friends at the National Urban League. Now, we do talk on the show about the issues that are reshaping Black America right now. One of those issues is reparations. Another is the way that AI data centers are being dropped into Black neighborhoods with zero community input. Gerrymandering districts down to dilute our political power, and the Black church, which is always at the center, has been at the center of our organizing, finding its footing in a new political moment. These are not abstract debates. These are the fights that are happening right now. And the National Urban League's Justice Now Season 2 goes deep on every single one of them. This is a documentary. It's documentary content that connects the policy to the people living inside it. Real communities, real consequences, real demands for change. So if you've been watching the show and asking yourself what accountability actually looks like on the ground, this is your answer. All episodes of Justice Now Season 2 are available right now for free on the National Urban League's YouTube channel. We'll put the link below. Just search the National Urban League on YouTube to start watching today. So thank you to the National Urban League. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that we've seen happen over the last couple of weeks. Lots of people have texted me about the fact that Brendan Carr, who wrote the Takeover the Media strategy in Project 2025, and who now chairs the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, he went to CPAC, and he just went ahead and said the thing. He just was very honest about what they're doing with the media. Here's what he said.
Give you such a shout out.
Look, President Trump, when he ran for office, he ran directly at the fake news.
Well, that's going to be a problem if we don't have the audio.
So many other politicians and Americans simply
there is audio on it, but we're not hearing it. What Brendan Carr said is we took over the media, and he took credit for having gotten me fired and gotten Jim Acosta fired. And he took credit for removing people that Donald Trump doesn't like from mainstream media. I don't know why the audio isn't there, but he took credit for us no longer being employed by mainstream companies, which is interesting that he would actually just go ahead and admit that, right? And I wonder why he would feel that he needed to do that. People are saying that they can hear it. Interesting. We can't hear it on our end, but you guys heard it. That's important. Because what he was saying is, it is true that we in the Trump regime are causing supposedly journalistic organizations and entities to make casting and hiring decisions based on what Trump likes and what he doesn't like. That's weird, right? I wonder why he would need to do that. And by the way, somebody please inform Piers Morgan, who doesn't want to believe it's true, but apparently it's true. So let's now think about why he might be doing that. I want to play, I love to play you old-timey clips.
I hope it plays though, because if nobody's hearing the audio, well, they said they can hear it.
People can hear it. I think they can hear it, but I think there's something going on our end.
All right, no problem.
But it's saying both in Substack and our YouTube audience are saying that
you guys all can hear the audio,
and they can hear Toure too. We just couldn't hear him. I'm not sure what's going on our end. Yeah, the gremlins are only hurting us, but they're not hurting the people. So let's go ahead and play this old-timey video. This is from Dwight David Eisenhower. So when Dwight Eisenhower ended his term as president, he gave a speech that is widely called the Military Industrial Complex speech, which is actually like a 16-minute address. And I cut about 3 minutes and 39 seconds from it. So I want you guys to listen to it. Here is Dwight Eisenhower warning the U.S. about the potential for corruption when private industry and the military sort of enthusiasm of people to use the military meet. Take a listen.
Vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. Akin to and largely responsible for the sweeping changes in our industrial military posture has been the technological revolution during recent decades. In this revolution, research has become central. It also becomes more formalized, complex, and costly. A steadily increasing share is conducted for, by, or at the direction of the federal government. Today, the solitary inventor, tinkering in his shop, has been overshadowed by task forces of scientists in laboratories and testing fields. In the same fashion, the free university, historically the fountainhead of free ideas and scientific discovery, has experienced a revolution in the conduct of research. Partly because of the huge costs involved, a government contract becomes virtually a substitute for intellectual curiosity.
So as Omar Moore points out on our Substack chat, this man was no saint. This is the guy responsible for his Secretary of State overthrowing the Iranian duly elected government. His government was engaged in lots and lots and lots of nefarious things nationwide. And also, as someone pointed out in our Substack chat, was the guy behind Operation Wetback. Sorry for that term, but that is what they called their mass deportation plan. They got people killed. So this guy wasn't a saint. He also used his expansion of the federal highway system to run through and destroy Black communities all over the country. If you live in Liberty City right now, you know that your people probably used to live in Overtown before they ran the 350 through it. So this guy wasn't a saint, but he did understand what the dangers were when this glee, this sort of zeal for military adventure, met a private industry that was doing public-private partnerships and wanting more and more and more business. Because if you're in the military business, the way you make money is through war, forever war. And I want you all to take a look now at what our defense spending has looked like over time. Because this idea of war, of forever war, has actually become a core part of the way that the United States makes money. It's become a very, very big part of our financial and economic floor. I'm going to go back here. Look at 1940. The defense spending in the U.S., in real dollars, was what, $37 billion? It got to, by 1945, World War II, $1.4 trillion. It then recedes somewhat, 1948, 1953. This is during the Eisenhower administration. You're talking about, in 2024 dollars, approximately $618 billion. It then starts to sneak up through the Kennedy administration, all the way through Lyndon Johnson, all the way through Jimmy Carter. It goes down a little bit with Jimmy Carter. Then you get back to Reagan, and in 2024 dollars, you're talking about $765 billion. It just keeps going up, 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 up. And as you see this spending getting higher and higher and higher, and this is way after the last war we ever won. The last war the U.S. won was in World War II, when, as Eisenhower said, we didn't have a military industrial complex. We didn't have a defense industry. Normal makers of plowshares had to make swords. They suddenly had to shift their production from automobiles or, washing machines or whatever they were making. Washing machines in the 50s, you know what I'm saying, to making bombs and aircraft. But then once World War II was done, an entire industry sprang up to do that. Let's look at this information here from the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. And you can find them at pgpf.org. That is their website. And this is some of their data. The top chart there, you can see the top chart there. That is the spending that the United States does when it comes to our military. All the other charts on the other side is every other country, every other leading country. There's China with the blue, Russia in the yellow, India, Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom in purple. Germany is blue, the country we defeated in World War II. And then Ukraine obviously has to spend a lot because of their war with Russia, France, and Japan. The United States spends more on defense than the next 9 countries combined. Post-World War II, we went from being an economy that was mainly industrial to an economy that was largely about defense. Look at the chart on the lower left-hand corner. This is showing you the kind of activities that we are spending on. Organization and maintenance is the big chart on the blue, dark blue. You have military personnel, only takes about 22% of that spending. That's what we're spending on the people. You're spending on research and development. 16% of that total is on research and development. And R&D has become a huge part of it. That's one of the things that you heard Eisenhower talking about, that we're going to spend all this money researching and developing arms and weapons. Arms and weapons while we're theoretically in peacetime. And look at the chart on the right to my screen. The defense budget versus the non-defense spending. It's almost 50-50. We went from a country that was essentially manufacturing plowshares to one that is essentially mainly manufacturing swords. And who is in charge of that military-industrial complex that eats up half of what we spend your tax dollars on? Well, after 9/11, thanks to the CIA, which has its own investment company, and after 9/11, thanks to 9/11, that people took full advantage of in order to ramp up the military-industrial complex and say, hey, we need more military stuff. They created the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11. It didn't even exist before then. Who was the biggest beneficiary of that? A company called Palantir. I want you to listen to the way their CEO, Alex Karp, sounds, because when you hear him, you'll understand the mentality of our current military-industrial complex. Here is a little mashup of Alex Karp.
So that what makes America special right now is our lethal capacities, our ability to fight war, both because we've been doing it for 20 years, because we have meritocracy in our military, and because we finance it in a way no other country has, and because the AI revolution is uniquely American. It's like every company, all the model providers that are relevant, and the ontology that makes them valuable, and the chips that they run on are built in this country. And that's happening.
Every Palantirian, we are crushing it. Everyone else who's listening, we are dedicating our company. We have dedicated our company to the service of the West and the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can't talk about. And we love our success in the U.S. and globally. Also, you know, we are doing in the United Kingdom and many other places. Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And we hope you're in favor of that. We hope you're enjoying being a partner, and we're really happy and very, very focused on what we're doing.
Interestingly, from an investment perspective, you know, I would say the last company standing before we all have to salute the overlord of the LLM will be Palantir. But none of that has to make any sense to anyone in this room. I'll tell you what, it makes a lot of sense to our adversaries right now.
Wealthy off of killing Palestinians, with Palantir kills Palestinians with their AI and technology.
Oh.
They're killing my family in Palestine.
Yeah. And, you know,
How do you sleep at night?
well, if you, do you want to hear my answer?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I think the primary cause of death to Palestinians. Okay, do you want to hear the answer, or do you want to yell? Well, you don't want to hear an answer? Obviously. So the primary source of death in Palestine is the fact that Hamas has realized that there are millions and millions of useful idiots that will.
Can we get security up there?
Mostly terrorists. That's true.
Remember that point in the Terminator when they revealed that the black scientist was the inventor of the original Terminator? And you're like, why has it got to be a black guy? That's a black guy. At least he's 50-50. I don't know, maybe Amber Rose, and she said that biracial people aren't black. Maybe she would disagree with me, but he is black according to the rules of white supremacy. He's got more than one drop. He's got 50%. That kind of genocidal talk about Palestinians, that kind of coldness toward the mass killing of them, the genocide of them, the sort of enthusiasm for killing by somebody who's never won the uniform, never will win the uniform, and won't have to fight these wars. But he's so zealous and so excited. He said he's excited that when he's sitting around that table, that's him at an investor meeting. And they're all calling in, and he's excited about their mission of killing, their mission of using technology to do surveillance and mete out death. One of the partners in Palantir is a guy called Peter Thiel. And he, of course, is part of what we call the PayPal mafia. Karp, Thiel, Elon, all of these people, Jeffrey Sachs, they all know each other. They've known each other for years. They've all invested, at various times in PayPal and other ventures. They invest in each other's ventures. And Peter Thiel is one of the Palantir investors and a friend of Alex Karp, and apparently somebody who was in touch very frequently with Jeffrey Epstein. Here's Peter Thiel.
How do we articulate, some of these existential risks, some of the challenges we have? And they're all framed in this sort of runaway dystopian science text. There's a risk of nuclear war. There's a risk of environmental disaster, maybe something specific like climate change, although there are lots of other ones we could come up with. There's a risk of, bioweapons. You have all the different sci-fi scenarios. Obviously, there are certain types of risks with AI. But I always think that if we're going to have this frame of talking about existential risks, perhaps we should also talk about the risk of another type of a bad singularity, which I would describe as the one world totalitarian state. Because I would say the political solution, the default political solution people have for all these existential risks is one world governance. And the Christian framing, which in some ways is the same question, is Antichrist or Armageddon. You have the one world state of the Antichrist, or we're sleepwalking towards Armageddon. One world or none, Antichrist or Armageddon, on one level are the same question. The way the Antichrist would take over the world is you talk about Armageddon nonstop. You talk about existential risk nonstop, and this is what you need to regulate. It's the opposite of the picture of Baconian science from the 17th, 18th century, where, the Antichrist is like some evil tech genius, evil scientist who invents this machine to take over the world. People are way too scared for that. In our world, the thing that has political resonance is the opposite. It is the thing that has political resonance is we need to stop science. We need to just say stop to this. And this is where, I don't know, in the 17th century, I can imagine a Dr. Strangelove, Edward Teller type person taking over the world. In our world, it's far more likely to be Greta Thunberg.
This is my very specific question for you, right? Is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
To be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe. But is this so preposterous that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted to The FDA regulates not just drugs in the US, but de facto in the whole world, because the rest of the world defers to the FDA. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission effectively regulates nuclear power plants all over the world. People, you can't design a modular nuclear reactor and just build it in Argentina. They won't trust the Argentinian regulators. They're going to defer to the US. And so it's at least a question about why we've had 50 years of stagnation.
So that was a long clip of someone who I laughed. The reason I laughed in the middle of that is somebody in the chat said that it looks like he always needs a shower. And that isn't wrong. Yeah, if you told me he was funky smelling, I wouldn't be shocked. Let's just put it that way. But that's Peter Thiel, right? I didn't show Elon Musk. It was very hard to find a sort of lucid stream of thought from him. It all sounds like word salad when he speaks. But Peter Thiel is the guy who's out there doing lectures on the Antichrist and saying that he knows what the Antichrist is. It's Greta Thunberg and other people who want to rein in AI, who want to regulate Peter Thiel. That is what the Antichrist is. I'm quite sure Alex Carr probably agrees with him. Now, AOC, who has been on it, she has been paying attention to this insanity. She has pointed out the dangers of these men and the things that they want to do to the American people and what it would mean for American workers. Here's AOC.
Fortunately, the leaders of this industry have repeated time and time again that they view working people as an endless, untapped market to be manipulated and exploited, that they would sell our country out if it meant that they could turn a profit. And it is no surprise that in the 4 years since ChatGPT was released, we have seen AI deployed at a massive scale to create Big Brother-like surveillance. Every day, Americans are seeing videos of ICE agents waving phones into crowds, threatening that if they use their First Amendment rights, U.S. citizens using their First Amendment rights, that they will be added to some vague database that the American people have not consented to nor are knowledgeable about. Companies like Palantir are mining endlessly the data and privacy of the American people, keeping track of everything that they say and do, and sending it all to a militarized and centralized government. When you take the subway, when you share a TikTok, when you talk to your Alexa at home, they are collecting your data and figuring out new ways to weaponize it. And now they are using AI tools to automate this so that it is not only pervasive, but that it is effortless. We must sound the alarm now. And because of this surveillance of the American people is not going to stop, we must stop it. All of this harm has occurred not in spite of, but because of the absence of federal legislation to regulate AI.
So AOC, I think, has put her finger on the danger, right? The danger is that these men, they're all men, view ordinary people as essentially chattel. They want to get back to a time when you had the uber rich, the plantation owners, and you had chattel, including the women. And they don't believe that anyone else should have any rights, particularly workers or communities who don't want to be polluted by AI factories or women at all. Many of them are not sure that women should vote. They certainly have a racial hierarchy in mind. Of course, Thiel comes from South Africa. His family were far right people in South Africa, as does Elon Musk. A bunch of them are white South Africans. Karp is not white South African. He's, as I said, a half black, half white, very strange man. But they've all got that in common, right? They believe that there should be this hierarchy and that they, who are the new military industrial complex, we are waging wars using their technologies. Most of these companies have defense contracts. They are the ones Eisenhower was warning about that have become this confluence of federal dollars and private corporations who have an interest in remaining at war. There's a reason Alex Karp is excited about war and killing, because it creates a market for his products. There's a reason they're excited about mass deportation and detention, because they're excited because it creates a market for their surveillance products. What it doesn't create, this technology that has replaced old industrial technology, what it doesn't create is opportunity for you. Here's Sam Altman, who's the CEO of one of these other companies, OpenAI, predicting that AI will take customer service jobs first and then speed up the historical rate of job turnover. More and more and more jobs will no longer be done by humans. You already experience this with customer service. You have to keep saying human in order to get a person, and that person is genuinely not in the United States. I just experienced this last week of having to be on customer service, and I said human, and when I finally got a human, the human was in Malaysia because I asked, where are you? American jobs are disappearing fast, and they're going to start with customer service, and Sam Altman has promised they're going to move on from just your customer service jobs and your tech support jobs to all the jobs. To that point, here is your First Lady, Melania Trump, doing a press availability with a humanoid AI-powered robot who she brags and is very excited to let you know will soon replace teachers.
Imagine a humanoid educator named Plato. Access to the classical studies is now instantaneous. Literature, science, art, philosophy, mathematics, and history. Humanity's entire corpus of information is available in the comfort of your home. Plato will provide a personalized experience, adaptive to the needs of each student. Plato is always patient and always available. Predictably, our children will develop deep critical thinking and independent reasoning abilities. The AI-powered Plato will boost analytics skills and problem solving and adapt in real time to a student's pace, prior knowledge, and even emotional state. The byproduct, a more well-rounded lifestyle for our children, freeing up time for being with friends, playing sports, and developing interests beyond school.
Y'all like, which one is the robot? Yeah, they're cruel. Listen, that lady supposedly has a genius visa. That's how she got past all the other immigrants to fight her way into a green card. So not just in war, but also war and peace, all controlled by the products being created by the Elon Musks, the Sam Altmans, the Peter Thiels, and the Greg Karps. They envision a world in which there's a market for their products that eats into everything, war and peace alike. And that's the future that they are promising us, a job where your taxi driver is an automated Tesla, where your customer service person is a robot, where your child's teacher is a programmable android that can be programmed with Western civilization knowledge that's going to uplift the supremacy of the people they want you to learn are superior. All programmed, all at the behest of the elites that will run us. So who gets to rule that future? Well, we know the answer. They do. At CPAC last week, there's a lot that went on there. There were lots of, talk of people were worried they're going to get arrested if they don't win the next midterms. There was the guy running for railroad commissioner in Texas who said 100 million immigrants need to be deported immediately, particularly the Muslims, because apparently they're planning to take over the country with Sharia law, and 100 million people shouldn't even be in America. Joe Biden let them in. Lots of stuff went on. There was a lot of, people who did man on the streets who said they think they're going to get cooked in the next election because Donald Trump's so unpopular. There was lots of stuff. There was also a straw poll on who the people at CPAC believe should be the next president. And here are the results. As you can see, it's kind of a dogfight a little bit between the leader, J.D. Vance, and Marco Rubio, and everyone else is in the ones and twos. But it's pretty much J.D. Vance's game, with Marco Rubio closing in on number 2. And now, leaving aside the fact that Steve Bannon, who's Jeffrey Epstein's second best friend after Donald Trump, and who was recording a 19-hour documentary with his friend trying to rehabilitate his image, which we don't get to hear about a lot, setting aside the fact that Bannon vowed that Trump would remain president essentially for life, the Republican Party has to at least go through the motions of pretending to seek a successor. They have to at least go through the motions of it, even though Many of them would just like Trump to remain the avatar for what they want to do to the country forever. And the military industrial Epstein AI caucus will require continuity in order to keep the profits and the defense contracts rolling in, right? They're going to need someone in office, whether it's Trump or whoever, to keep the money and the plans rolling in. So I want you to note that Marco Rubio, who is at 35% in that poll, is the guy whose job it appears to be, from my observation, it appears to be his job to co-opt MAGA for the purposes of the Epstein class warmongers. He's the front man for the wars, the war in Venezuela, the war on Cuba, the war in Iran, the war to take over Greenland. He and Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War Crimes, they're the war caucus in MAGA, which makes you wonder why you're seeing so little of the guy who used to sound like this.
Never Trump guy. I never liked him. It makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
No, I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
Like you said, I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
Definitely, there is definitely an element of Donald Trump support that has its basis in racism or xenophobia. I think there's a chance, if I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, that I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. I think that I'm going to vote third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place.
I love the way somebody in the comments said he really does need the beard. Because otherwise he looks like a giant toddler. So that guy, J.D. Vance, is now basically MIA, right? He's just missing. While this war is happening, you barely see him. He was in Hungary supporting Viktor Orban. He still runs around to Europe and lectures them from time to time about how they need to defend Western civilization, aka the past of white folks and colonialism. And while the AI oligarchs, meanwhile, are letting it leak that they too, the AI Epstein class that I showed you before, that they too are against this war in Iran, right? That they don't see it as America first. So they are sort of lining up as the oppose Israel, oppose the wars caucus. They were all kind of lining up behind the son of alleged CIA officer, the son of an alleged CIA officer. His son is named Tucker Carlson, whose dad allegedly was a CIA guy. They're all kind of lining up. There's that camp. The Tucker Carlson is the big communicator in it. The Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson camp, who perhaps coincidentally was the first person to get an exclusive interview with Joe Kent when Joe Kent resigned from the director of national intelligence, saying that he couldn't support the Iran war and stating that Israel had pressured Donald Trump into doing it, but that he remains a super fan of Donald Trump. But it was Israel who pressured Trump into the war, which seems entirely true if you're honest. Like, it's honest that it seems that Bibi Netanyahu, with his 7 visits to the White House, is who compelled Donald Trump to go into the war. But it is notable, and I think you should know, that this anti-war caucus that is huddled around Tucker, I want you to know that Tucker also happens to be the guy who got Trump, who he's alternately claimed to despise and to be friends with. He's the guy who got Trump to pick J.D. Vance as his vice presidential running mate. It was Tucker Carlson that convinced Donald Trump to pick J.D. Vance as his running mate, despite Vance previously also despising Trump, as you heard in that clip. According to the New York Times, Tucker sold J.D. to Trump by telling Trump that he would be assassinated if he were to pick a neocon like Marco Rubio as vice president instead of J.D., because the military, the deep state, the military industrial Israel caucus would jump at the chance to have their kind of guy become president at the earliest convenience. Let me go ahead and quote from the New York Times story on this. In their phone conversation in June, Mr. Carlson told Mr. Trump that another Trump running mate contender, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, could not be trusted, that he would work against him and would try to lead America into nuclear war. Mr. Carlson, who declined to comment, told Mr. Trump that the other top contender, Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota, they've now put it Interior, could not be trusted either. Mr. Carlson told Mr. Trump in that phone call that he believed that if he chose a neocon as his VP, an abbreviation for Republicans who favor using U.S. power to implant democracy abroad, then the U.S. intelligence agencies would have every incentive to assassinate Mr. Trump in order to get their preferred president, unquote. Note that Tucker, in his calls to Trump, calls Rubio, who I showed you earlier in the show, rebranded as a Tea Partier, which is supposed to be the opposite of a neocon. He's still calling him a neocon, meaning that Tucker has peeped that Marco Rubio's Tea Partyism is a disguise, that he's not really Tea. He was never a Tea Party. He was always a neocon, which is probably true. I was in Florida. We were in Florida for 14 years. I covered Marco Rubio. As far as I could tell, he was a typical Reagan-type Republican. He was a neocon, pro-war, all this stuff. But he rebranded himself as a Tea Partier, as we showed earlier in the show. But Tucker was saying, that guy's a neocon. You can't trust him. He's going to get us into wars. And you know who else also talked Trump into picking J.D. Vance? The guy who built J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, who also, probably completely by coincidence, financially backed Joe Kent when he ran for Congress before joining the administration. Also under, previously anti-war Tulsi Gabbard. Peter Thiel, let me quote Politico. This is back in 2021. Peter Thiel has been a big Republican donor for well over a decade, dishing out hundreds of thousands of dollars to support Trump's campaigns. His favorite candidates have not always been successful. However, during the 2020 cycle, he contributed more than $2 million to a super PAC that supported the Senate candidacy of Kansas Republican Chris Kobach. Kobach, a bomb-throwing anti-immigration conservative who was opposed by the GOP establishment, lost the primary to now GOP Senator Roger Marshall. But Thiel's investments in Masters and J.D. Vance, who are by far his largest in support of any other candidate, those close to Thiel say that he's also looking at potentially supporting other 2022 contenders, such as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's seeking re-election. Remember, he strongly opposed Donald Trump and was seen as sort of a successor, like a replacement for Trump. Peter Thiel liked him. And Army veteran Joe Kent, who's waging a challenge to Republican Jamie Herrera Boutler, a Trump impeachment backer in Washington State's all-party primary. He lost that, but he was backed by Peter Thiel. So Peter Thiel's people are J.D. Vance, Joe Kent, Ron DeSantis. Tucker Carlson is the first guy to get the interview with Joe Kent, is friends with Peter Thiel. They're all in the same camp. And he was a Ron DeSantis guy for a minute, back when he was pretending he didn't like Donald Trump. Here's another person that you heard mentioned in that story, Blake Masters, who was also supported by Peter Thiel. In his Wikipedia, it says that as a teenage undergraduate, Blake Masters expressed his political views in a CrossFit chat room and a live journal blog. In a 2006 essay, he criticized the war in Iraq on the libertarian site LouRockwell.com. If you're not familiar with it, it's a kind of kooky libertarian site. Masters decried U.S. entry into World War I and described a quote from Nazi Hermann Göring on the susceptibility of the masses to incitements of war as being particularly representative and poignant. He found German to be poignant. He also endorsed conspiracy theorist Edward Griffin's claim that the House of Morgan and Rothschild were linked to the sinking of the Lusitania, which is a sort of big moment in American history. During his college years, Blake Masters contended that Iraq and al-Qaeda were not substantial threats to Americans, calling for unrestricted immigration and an isolationist foreign policy. On his 2006 writings, he told the Jewish Insider in 2022, I was 19, writing in opposition to the Iraq War stance that turned out to be prescient. I went too far and stated that no recent American wars have been just. Masters met Thiel when he was attending Stanford Law School, where apparently he would post detailed notes from Thiel's lectures on a blog which grew popular within the tech community. Renditions of Masters' notes reappeared online, prompting Masters to get in contact with Thiel about compiling them into a book. The book is called 0 to 1. It was released in September of 2014 during the Obama era. It received warm reviews from The Atlantic and Publishers Weekly. According to Politico, the book portrayed globalization as the enemy of innovation. Masters was included on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list in 2014. His conspiracy theorist posts became a political issue when they were unearthed during his 2022 Senate campaign. He got attacked by the Anti-Defamation League. They criticized him. He got criticized by his rival, Jim Lamon, in his ads, and he lost the election. But he did go on to get a job working for Peter Thiel, just like J.D. Vance did. He became the chief operating officer of Peter Thiel's investment firm, Thiel Capital, as well as the president of the Thiel Foundation. It was from that perch that he got support from Peter Thiel to run for Senate. So that makes 3 Peter Thiel people, right, in the not Marco Rubio camp that are all kind of lining up on the America First side of MAGA, the let's not do endless war side of MAGA, but also on the mass surveillance, but we make all the AI stuff to do wars side. So it's weird, right? And we know from listening to Alex Carr that what the Epstein class AI military industrial class is building, thanks to 9/11 and the CIA funding for Palantir and Israel's success at turning Trump into a neocon warmonger, we know that they're building a mass surveillance state, which includes an additional array of facial recognition, not just at TSA, at the ICE counter. The TSA counter, which has become the ICE counter, right? Now they're using ICE people to do your TSA screening before you can go through baggage claim, but they're also adding an additional layer of facial recognition built by these AI giants as you board your plane. And the White House is getting in on the complete surveillance game too. They created their own app. And if you download this app, you can text the president, apparently, but you also will be continually surveilled. An attorney named Mitch Jackson wrote on his LinkedIn page the following. He's a lawyer and a mediator with 40 years of experience. He wrote, the Trump administration launched an official White House app on March 27, 2026. They marketed it as a direct line to the president, breaking news, live streams, policy updates, a way to text the president and send feedback. That description makes it sound like a simple news app. It's not a simple news app. A security researcher decompiled the app within hours of its release. The code tells a story the marketing materials do not. The app contains a full GPS tracking pipeline built by OneSignal, a commercial third-party notification company. That pipeline is designed to poll your precise GPS coordinates every 4.5 minutes when the app is in the foreground, every 9.5 minutes when you are not using it, so it's in the background. Latitude, longitude, accuracy, timestamp, whether you're actively using the app or it was running in the background. All of it syncs to OneSignal's commercial servers. The app requests access to your precise location, your approximate location, and your background location. It requests fingerprint and biometric hardware access. It requests the ability to modify your stored files. It requests the ability to run at startup. It requests the ability to draw over other apps. It requests the ability to view your Wi-Fi connections for a news app. He writes, stop and think about that for a moment. You open this app to read a press release. The app has the infrastructure to record your GPS coordinates and send them to a commercial server every 4.5 minutes. You close the app. The pipeline keeps running every 9.5 minutes. The full tracking code is compiled into the app. The JavaScript API to activate it is then referenced in the app's code. The app requests location permissions from you at runtime. Your phone is becoming a government-connected tracking device sitting in your pocket. And by you agreeing to the terms of service, you effectively consented to be continually surveilled by Donald Trump's regime. And that is what the Trump regime is doing. That's the kind of surveillance ICE is using. You've noticed that when ICE agents are putting phones in people's faces, they're using one of these sophisticated apps developed by our AI overseers, which allows them to use facial recognition technology to determine whether you are a target for them to throw on the ground and throw into a van. So now we have surveillance doubly at the airport when you're trying to go through baggage claim, surveillance when you get on the plane, facial recognition hits you a second time, surveillance in the app on your phone, I saw another post by an attorney who was saying you should turn off facial recognition when you go through the airport for fear of surveillance through your phone, whether or not you have the White House app, surveillance through the White House app. You see where we're going? The new military industrial complex, they can say we're anti-war because we don't want to use these technologies to invade other countries, but they certainly have a new market to use the technology on us. Clay Higgins, who's a Republican congressman, he bragged on his Twitter feed. He said, Congressman Clay Higgins, you're a MAGA Republican, so why did you say that the No Kings rallies were a success? Me? Because we were carefully observing. Ma'am, liberals gathered predictably. Weather cooperated. Crowds were thin. They weren't thin, but they tended to linger and pose. It was pretty much a flawless operation. We have millions of digital images, billions of identifying data points, height, weight, shoe size, tattoos, gait, all of it. All AI eats that stuff. He's bragging that your government is surveilling you and using facial recognize to catalog you at protests. Doge already cataloged you by taking all of your social security data and feeding that into an AI. This is the new military industrial complex. Yes, if you accept the terms of service for Twitter, also tracking you. If you accept the new terms of service for TikTok, also tracking you. And now it is, of course, David Ellison, who I left off a clip of him. He might be the creepiest and weirdest of all. And he believes in a total surveillance state where your car surveils you, where your phone surveils you. And just to be clear, who these new oligarchs are, if you have C18, Donald Trump threw a party for the Japanese prime minister, an official sort of state dinner. And among the people who were there clapping and yapping, and we can do it without the sound, and you'll see it when it pops on, is Alex Karp. You can see him when you scroll through. There's Burgum. You can see Doug Burgum back there. You can see the guy who he sued the cow, Devin Nunes, who runs Donald Trump's media company. And you also saw circled there Miriam Adelson. Miriam Adelson, the widow of Sheldon Adelson, who's one of Donald Trump's biggest donors, the man for whom Donald Trump gave the gift of moving the Israeli embassy into Jerusalem, which is a huge violation of the peace process. But that's what they wanted. And that's what the expansionists who want there to be an Eretz Israel want. So Donald Trump is making sure that she's close at hand so she can keep giving. He's making sure Alex Karp is close at hand. So when you think that there is a MAGA split that's going to redound to fewer wars if the pro-America first side wins, I'm not sure that's true. Because Alex Karp is both vehemently pro more forever wars because his technology will benefit and he'll profit and his company will profit. But they also seem to be pro mass surveillance, which is their other business, which will also profit. So you're seeing what looks like a split within MAGA, but at the end of the day, they're going to get one of their two people in the White House, right? Rubio or Vance. And Vance is being set up to be the anti-war version of it. But if you think that if he got in, you'd suddenly have no more forever wars, then you probably also believe that about Donald Trump. Because what can happen is co-optation. People will vote thinking if we put Vance in, they've hidden him very strategically. He's not around. He's not responsible. It's really Rubio who's the bad guy in the war stuff. It's Rubio who's doing the war stuff. But before you pick the J.D. Vance side of that MAGA fissure, remember co-optation. Because they can easily put Vance in. And who are his people? Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, Elon Musk, Jeffrey Sachs, the same people who are building a new military industrial complex for both forever wars and forever surveillance. You'll get co-opted and you'll get the same shit, different guy.
Do you think you could have ever said any of this in mainstream media?
Absolutely not.
That's why we have independent media, and this is why we do it.
There is a such thing as performative opposition, where it looks like there are two sides when there's really only one side. I have a lot of people texting me, boy, that Tucker's really making sense out here. Maybe. Joe Kent has declared that he is a super fan remaining of Donald Trump. You have a side that's saying that they want to oppose the war in Iran, but they report up to the same people who are bragging about creating the technology to obliterate Iran and the Palestinians, to up the genocide to an industrial scale across the Middle East. So the forever war side and the not forever war side kind of feel like the same side to me. Trust no one. And let's not let the Democrats off the hook, because while AOC is out there fighting this, we need to find out who is going to shut down this new military industrial complex, this AI-driven, Epstein-friendly, hanging out and emailing with Jeffrey Epstein caucus who want forever war and forever freaking surveillance. Trust no one until you're clear that they're not trying to co-opt you with what looks and feels like opposition, but that is really controlled opposition. Before we go, I try not to play a lot of Donald Trump, but I got to play you just this one clip. Donald Trump, I know you've seen the clip of him saying he likes to be around losers because he likes the fact that they have to ask him about his success. In that same press availability, he said something even weirder. Take a listen to this.
Everybody very much, and I'm asked to take a few questions, and unlike other politicians, they would like the questions screened. I don't ask for screening of the questions. You can ask me anything you want. You can talk sex, you can do whatever the hell you want. I'm here for you.
Who says that? Who says that you can talk sex? What are you talking about? I know he's on the brink of dementia, but what? Okay, but you know what, Donald? Let's go ahead. Let's talk it. Let's talk sex, but the prurient illegal kind. The Post and Courier out of South Carolina. There's their headline of what they've got on their website right now. And this is a Dateline Hilton Head. A guy named Jimmy Atkins swept into town in the blur of the 1980s when investors were transforming the once sleepy Sea Island into a mecca of luxury homes, beachfront hotels, and world-class golf courses. Atkins' businesses back in Ohio were running trade schools. But on Hilton Head, he took over a small company that specialized in long-term rentals. Property in the island's gated subdivisions, called plantations in reference to the local antebellum history, attracted vacationing families and wealthy retirees. Corporate executives and global financiers descended by private plane to survey the frenzy some 2 decades after the island's transformation. At Harbert Realty and Rentals, with an office near Coligny Beach, Atkins came into contact with a teenage girl who would later claim to the FBI that she was sexually assaulted by him and a young Jeffrey Epstein, the infamous and now deceased sexual predator. She alleged to agents that the two men also conspired to extort her mother to embezzle money. The mother eventually ended up in prison. Her mother informed her late in the process that they were in trouble, that she had seen photographs, and that she was paying people money, an FBI agent wrote in an interview summary, referring to alleged nude photos of the teen. She detailed her claims in a series of 4 FBI interviews in 2019, the first of which chronicled her allegations of rapes, beatings, and other torture at the hands of Epstein. In other words, this newspaper, which shows you the continuing value of newspapers, seems to have corroborated the identity of the woman who accused Jeffrey Epstein, this other man, and Donald Trump of abusing her sexually. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. I think we truly do need a moment of joy at this point. Scaring is caring, we like to say on this show. Let's play this. Hold on, Jason. Wait. Don't play it. Let me set it up. This is a great piece by oh no. I'm going to have to get somebody to put into our thing. What's the name of this creator? I apologize for not having it on top of hand. Winnie, can you grab the name of the creator, please, and put it into the Slack channel? But okay, let's play it. This one is fun. Moment of joy. Go.
Welcome. You're gonna hate it here. we have people eating babies.
Oh, we have that.
Yeah, we have that on Earth.
Yeah, we have.
There's
that.
a pretty massive scandal over that specifically. No, there's like it's well known that's going on already. Yeah, we already kind of. Last I was up there, that's not something that was going.
It's funny because it's horrible, but it's also actually true. Like you go to hell and you find out that all the things that they say are terrible that is happening is actually really happening. It's just happening in the United States. It does look like Jolly Good Ginger. I don't think it's Jolly Good Ginger, but I'm gonna find out who it is, and I apologize for not having it quick. I'm waiting for a text from Winnie to tell me who this person is. Hold on a second. I'm gonna find it. I want to give him credit. Let me hold on. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna keep looking. Give me 1 second. I'm waiting for somebody to text me. Hello. Let's find it. Okay, I'm telling you the name. It is Moschino, Moschino, Moschino. We're going to put his tag in the description of the show. Thank you so much for that. Hell definitely seems familiar these days. Thanks for watching the Joy Reid Show. Please hit like and subscribe, hit share. Let everyone know that we are the place that's going to give you not just unfiltered news and information, but also the critical context to understand what you're seeing. All your aunties that are texting you, that Tucker Carlson seems like he's got it. He gets it. He understands what's happening. Just think. Who do these people report to? Who do they know? What side are they really on? And what are their plans? And what would they do if they were to be able to get Trump's
They're
job?
on the devil's side. We all know that already.
We all know that. We need to know that they're on our side. And I don't see anybody on that side that look like they on our side. That's all I'm saying.
Well, family, thank you. Have a good night. I'm hungry. Let's go eat.
Cheers and good night.
Getting back to the basics, grassroots level. Let me dig a little deeper with the shovel. Plenty can't tell the forest from the trees, and I'm hard to detect, like a black hole in the dark. Injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere. Let me make this clear, I got a bone to pick, and I'll never fear the threat of poverty. They don't want to talk about it, they rather party, so I'm a real talk about it, for sure.